Now, to love someone means that you will what is good for them. And that's the meaning of the word benevolence, benevolence, will the good. Now, if I love you, that means sometimes I'm not going to will what you desire because you sometimes desire what is not good. We all know this again in the case of our families, that to love a child often means that we do not do what they want. Frankly, to love me would mean that I would often not do what I want. Do I need to say that again? To love me would mean that I often would not do what I want. I might be the sort of person who would say, if I have to die, let me drown in a chocolate milkshake. I might just adore chocolate milkshakes. That doesn't mean they're good for me. Right? So self-love would mean often that I not do what I desire to do and do what I do not desire to do. So now this is tremendously important, folks, for understanding the kinds of things that we deal with in trying to live for God and looking at what God says, because what God says is what is good for us, not necessarily what we desire. But self-will says, I want what I want when I want it. See, that's the poison of self-will that corrupts the good in human life. I want what I want. One of the first things you have to teach a child is it isn't always good to do what you want. You would like to hit Johnny over the head with the truck. That's not good. And you shall not do it. You ought not to do it. And if you do it, you're a bad boy. Right? See, those are rudimentary lessons. Now, nature, that is connections of things in reality independently of what we think or desire. See, that's our only salvation, is to find out what those are. And when it comes to life at large, we, especially as individuals, are not smart enough to do that. And that is where a God who speaks in love becomes central to the well-being of human life. So now, we are currently awash in a sea of sexuality of all kinds. God said certain things about sexuality, but they do not conform with what people may want in the area of sexuality. So when you cut loose from the teachings that God has given about it, I don't mean to say that there are no difficulties with that, human beings being what they are, there are difficulties, but when you just cut that loose and say anything goes, well, then you have stepped into an area where things are going to have a nature and results will be there regardless of what you like, because you can choose the action, but you can't choose the consequences. So now we have a situation, if you want to see the insanity of sin, we have a situation where millions, and indeed hundreds of millions of people are going to die of a disease that is fundamentally tied to wrong sexuality. And no one can say a word about that. The Frenchman who was head of the health organization that first came into Africa to deal with AIDS made the suggestion that it was related to sexual practices, and he was immediately fired. Why? Because human will and desire has institutionalized itself in a culture that rejects truth and goes with desire.